Over the centuries, entertainment has changed its form, but it has never failed to provoke emotion from its viewers. Take Norman Reedus' performance, for example, in an episode of The Walking Dead, where he had to kill his own brother. Perhaps the only way ugly crying was made more relatable was if the player experienced making this decision themselves, immersing the player in the moment.
This is what I call progress, my friend.
Gameplay is the edge that video games have over other forms of media. It gives its audience a physical connection to the content. But similar to how people don't simply read books just for the sake of having read the book, players play games not necessarily to complete it, but for its emotional ride.
That's right.
In fact, emotion is a critical aspect of achieving immersion. The process of experiencing the emotive ups and downs within a game's content feels more real and meaningful to the player, making the engagement more immersive. Fail to emotionally invest your player, and the game no longer becomes interesting, and the players will begin to lose the motivation to play. However, most of this emotional connection in games is created by cutscenes, story plot, and dialogue. Rather than using the most unique aspects of video games, gameplay and interactivity. Unlike movies and books, if a developer wants the player to feel powerful or vulnerable, they can literally place the player into that situation. Creating emotion through gameplay is a powerful tool, and Gordon Kalia understands this in his model for different types of player interaction within games. The model consists of 6 elements that affect one another to create the notion of incorporation, or what we call immersion. This model was created to help analyze the different types of player interaction within games. 2 of the 6 elements that are mentioned in this video are kinesthetic and shared involvement. Kinesthetic refers to the movement or controls of the game character, while shared refers to the interaction between the player and other components within the game. Together, these 2 elements form a large portion of the interactive gameplay aspect that video games offer. In terms of shared involvement, developers can design the enemies in such a way that elicits and manipulates the player's emotions. For example, if you want the player to feel weak, you can reduce the player's damage and increase the enemy's attacks. Developers can also make the player feel vulnerable by making the enemy appear large and menacing. Conversely, to make a player feel powerful, that same large and menacing enemy can instead have relatively weaker stats than the player. However, use this incorrectly and you may frustrate or bore the player instead. If the game is consistently too difficult, the player only experiences the emotion of anger and frustration. Likewise, if challenges in the game are too easy, the player experiences little to no emotion, making the game boring. It is the use of strategic emotional manipulation through a constant cycling between periods of feeling powerful and then vulnerable, again and again, that creates a diverse and dynamic gameplay experience that keeps the players interested. Take Cuphead for example. The exhilarating feeling of finally completing a level contrasts the numerous amounts of failed attempts to get there. The game's lows of failing makes reaching the end much more valuable. The levels also have checkpoints to provide players with a small goal, segmenting the level and producing small highs for the player during failed attempts. It is this emotional rollercoaster that keeps us entertained and motivated to continue, where the highs of the rides act like the rewards. But this emotional ride can be broken when kinesthetic involvement is not well designed. For example, in Fallout 4, the highs and lows of immersion is interrupted when a player has to stop and physically think about the controls. The controls should not distract the player from the gameplay, but instead help facilitate the emotional and immersive state by being fluid and intuitive, to the point where the player doesn't notice them. However, Fallout 4 fails to achieve this when its console controls swap the A button for the Y button for jump. Not only is this different from other FPS games, making it counterintuitive, but the ease of transition is also removed, as the Y button is further away. Additionally, Bethesda's previous title, Fallout 3, introduced the grab action, which was bound to the Z key, making it awkward for the players to pick up objects whilst moving due to the odd hand position. Even though this was changed to be more intuitive in Fallout 4, the purpose of grabbing never really developed. It mostly served as an alternative solution to problems in the game, like stacking crates on top of one another to skip a section of a level. In this way, it served as a solution that shows the seams of the game world. with clunky controls and buggy physics, as well as objects flying across the room if they did not stack properly. This sort of solution is kinesthetically detached from the game world, in terms of the controls and how it causes the player to step out of the game world when it is used. Something as simple as picking up items should be seamlessly intuitive, just like how it is in real life. Fail to do this, and the willing suspension of disbelief is no longer achieved. Games must convince the player that the given scenario is plausible. Once you introduce something that is implausible enough to break the suspension, such as finding it awkward to pick up items, all the sense of immersion is lost, including its emotional ties. However, bad controls don't always mean bad gameplay. This exception can be demonstrated by the relatively new genre of comedic games that are purposely designed with bad controls. Games like I Am Bread and Surgeon Simulator have ridiculous controls, but they also have equally as ridiculous premises and visual cues. While the character does become extremely difficult to control, it is this silly combination that produces the emotions of joy and laughter instead, as well as the feeling of satisfaction when one is able to master the bizarre controls and complete the tasks, therefore also producing the highs of the roller coaster. While the other previously mentioned games involve immersion in the sense of escapism, these games induce immersion through the emotions of joy as well as striving to achieve the end goal. Overall, while role-playing games and other realistic games rely on gameplay through unobtrusive controls to create emotional involvement, comedic games use obtrusive controls to elicit joy and challenge to achieve emotional immersion. By use of the unique interactivity and gameplay of video games, developers can manipulate and influence a player's emotions by using the game elements to directly affect the player, rather than simply relying on narrative alone.
I'm in love. You've been on my mind all summer, so I never wonder why I like the slumber that's needed to reach achievement. Your loving is all I needed. I'm wrestling with my demons, trying to spit me in halves. One piece is peace, unconscious and utter happiness. The difference, my life would shift if I could clutch a mic and spit my heart out to every walk of life. My cousins in my footsteps now, and we was both raised on fight and faith.